In the depths of history lurk secrets that have been hidden for centuries under the cover of time and religious beliefs, waiting to be revealed. Imagine knowledge deliberately removed from the sacred scriptures, an ancient doctrine that may have been a cornerstone of early Christianity, but was suppressed and consigned to oblivion by edicts and church councils. What if we assume that reincarnation, the belief that our souls experience multiple lives, once graced the pages of the Bible itself? In this journey, we will travel back in time to revisit ancient texts and explore the decisions that have shaped Christian thought. Is it possible that such a profound truth, shared by many cultures and spiritual traditions, has been intentionally withheld from us? Prepare to open your mind and heart to unravel this mystery together. Has reincarnation really been excluded from the Bible? To understand how the concept of reincarnation could be related to early Christianity, we need to travel back in time and look to the civilizations of antiquity. Long before the coming of Christ, the idea of reincarnation was already in the air, permeating sacred temples, illuminating the minds of sages, and shrouding the secret rituals of the chosen ones. In the depths of Egypt, where the majestic pyramids silently watched the passage of time, Egyptian priests carefully kept the secret of the return of the soul. For them, death was only a gateway, a transition from one stage of existence to another. The Book of the Dead, the treasury of Egyptian sacred writings, describes in detail the wanderings of the soul, its trials, and the possibility of rebirth in a new form or remain in the spiritual realms. The soul was imagined as an eternal traveler, destined to return again and again until absolute harmony was achieved. At the other end of the world, on the banks of the sacred river Ganges, a different understanding of reincarnation flourished. Indian Vedic texts, created around 1500 BC, originate the concept of samsara, the endless cycle of births, deaths, and rebirths. This cycle continues, according to ancient Hindu texts, until the soul is freed from the shackles of material attachments and attains moksha, that is, eternal liberation. In the cycle of existence, every action leaves an indelible mark, shaping future incarnations and determining the trajectory of spiritual growth, culminating in enlightenment. Perhaps one of the most intriguing views on reincarnation, however, is ancient Greek philosophy. Pythagoras, an eminent thinker and mathematician, preached to his followers the idea of the immortality of the soul and its series of rebirths. Each new existence was presented to him as a chance for self-improvement and acquisition of wisdom. Pythagoras believed in the divine order permeating the universe and believed that reincarnation allows the soul to gradually ascend the steps of this hierarchy, approaching absolute perfection. According to his teachings, the soul continues its journey, incarnating in various bodies until it reaches complete purity and enlightenment. Plato, another titan of Greek thought, shared these beliefs. In his dialogue The Phaedon, he describes how Socrates believed in the rebirth of souls and their spiritual evolution over many lives. According to Plato, pure souls ascend to higher realms, while those who have yet to learn return to the mortal world for further development. In all these teachings, reincarnation appears not merely as a spiritual dogma, but as a fundamental mechanism for the perfection of the soul and the attainment of a higher state of being. In ancient times, there was an opinion that each incarnation gives a chance for self-perfection, opening new horizons for moral and spiritual transformation. Each lived life was represented as a fresh chapter in the immense chronicle of the evolution of the human soul. And now, against this background, a natural question arises. If the idea of reincarnation occupies a central place in many cultures of the world, why did Christianity reject it, at least in its modern interpretation, or perhaps it was once part of the Christian worldview? In the first centuries after Christ's departure, Christianity was not a monolithic and clearly structured religion. Each community interpreted the words and teachings of Jesus in its own way. There was no canonical Bible, no single governing center that set the rules. There was only an all-consuming desire to understand divine truths and existential questions of existence. As the Roman Empire expanded and Christianity spread, its early followers held a wide variety of views far removed from the strict dogmas that later became established in the Church. Indeed, the early Christians had a worldview far different from the rigid doctrines we know today. In an age of spiritual inquiry, when the quest for universal truths extended beyond the limits of earthly existence, the human soul was seen as an immortal entity unconstrained by the physical body. In the center of attention was not only the current stage of life, but also the eternal wandering of the soul in time. This prompted many Christian thinkers of that time to think about the possibility of the soul returning to the earthly world after death in a new form, as an integral part of the continuous process of purification and spiritual evolution. Origen of Alexandria, a prominent Christian figure of the time, stood out as a staunch supporter of the idea of reincarnation. He was not only a theologian, but also a mystical philosopher who was deeply influenced by the esoteric traditions of Egypt, Greece, and the Near East. Origen held the view that the soul was not a transitory creation of God, but had an eternal origin, passing through a series of lives and deaths. In his seminal work, On Beginnings, Origen asserted that after release from the bodily shell, the human soul would reincarnate on earth, continuing its journey to complete purification and spiritual perfection. Reincarnation seemed to him not just a change of bodies, but a stage of spiritual ascent. The soul, wandering through a series of lives, gets rid of filth, perfects its virtues until it merges with the divine beginning. This concept is remarkably consistent with modern ideas, and Origen saw reincarnation not as a punishment, but as a chance for spiritual education and personal growth. He argued that life experience is necessary for the formation of the soul, that it is through it that it approaches the comprehension of eternal truth. His words read, "Every soul comes into this world carrying either the strength of victories or the burden of defeats won in past lives. The idea that decisions and misdeeds committed in one life can affect future incarnations echoes the principles of cosmic justice that permeate ancient spiritual teachings." For Origen, reincarnation was not something foreign to Christianity. On the contrary, he believed that it is organically combined with the idea of redemption and spiritual purification, proclaimed by Christ himself. After all, who is better prepared to meet eternity than a soul that has passed through countless circles of existence? In the first centuries of its existence, Christianity was in the process of formation, absorbing a variety of spiritual and philosophical ideas consonant with ancient traditions. In early Christian texts, the idea of reincarnation was debated, though not universally endorsed. However, in the 6th century, an important event occurred that changed the course of the history of Christian doctrine. The Council of Constantinople, an influential assembly with the power to transform Christian doctrine, delivered its verdict on the concept, marking a turning point. The decision to exclude reincarnation from official doctrine was not only theological, but also political in nature. Emperor Justinian and his wife, Empress Theodora, led a campaign to eradicate the notion of multiple lives and, with it, the idea of continuous spiritual development extending beyond a single earthly life. Emperor Justinian was a man who did not tolerate dissent. For him, the unification of Christianity under one set of doctrines was necessary not only to strengthen his faith, but also to maintain order in his empire. Reincarnation, with its concept of multiple lives and spiritual self-sufficiency, represented a challenge to the centralized authority of the Church, which sought to control the fate of the soul and the process of its redemption. Under the shadow of the political foresight and unwavering determination of his wife Theodora, Emperor Justinian convened the Second Council of Constantinople in the landmark year of 553 AD. This council was not just a milestone, but a true turning point in the history of Christianity. Relying on the support of church hierarchs whose fates were closely intertwined with imperial power, Justinian skillfully used the council as an instrument to establish a uniform doctrine designed to unite the empire under the banner of a single faith. The Council of Constantinople brought together bishops and theologians from various corners, especially from Eastern Christendom, although individuals from the West also participated. Among the key figures who shaped the course of the council was Patriarch Eutychius of Constantinople, who was entrusted with the presidency of this important gathering. No less important was Bishop Vigilius of Rome, who initially resisted some of the decisions, but eventually yielded to the pressure of the imperial authorities, realizing the inevitability of compromise in such delicate matters. The eradication of the idea of reincarnation from Christian doctrine went far beyond purely theological disputes. Reincarnation as a concept had a powerful message. Each soul was responsible for its own evolution, and through a series of lives could attain the purity necessary to reunite with the divine. This idea seemed to undermine the foundations of Orthodox doctrine, making its elimination a matter of paramount importance for the establishment of a unified and unshakable faith. Such a view had the potential to turn people away from the vital need for the only mediating institution designed to bestow salvation. Control over the post-mortem fate of the soul was one of the most effective levers of influence to ensure the power of the Church over the flock. If people believed that they were given only one life to achieve salvation, the urgency to follow the church's dogmas and rituals would increase dramatically. On the other hand, the concept of reincarnation opened up to the soul, the possibility of independent development over many lives outside the framework of any single institution. Justinian, being a far-sighted ruler, realized that a church united under the aegis of a single doctrine would undoubtedly strengthen the power of his empire. By excluding the idea of reincarnation from Christian teaching, he reinforced the need to seek salvation immediately, without compromise, and solely through obedience to the clergy and official church dogma. Theodora, Justinian's wife, exerted considerable influence on the exclusion of reincarnation from Christian doctrine for personal motives. Before ascending to the imperial throne, Theodora's life was marred by poverty and public censure resulting from her past as an actress and courtesan. These life experiences created in her a deep fear of the prospect of being reborn in a new life of similar hardship and deprivation. Emperor Justinian's personal fears, intertwined with his unwavering desire to unify Christian doctrine and strengthen the position of the Church as the exclusive guide to salvation, led to a widespread strengthening of the belief that earthly life is the only opportunity for man to predetermine the fate of his soul. Justinian, empowered, issued a direct decree declaring the doctrine of reincarnation a heretical delusion, which put enormous pressure on society. Even the most stubborn opponents, driven by fear or perhaps relieved, eventually accepted the decision. Eventually, Origen, a prominent theologian and philosopher, was branded a heretic, and his ideas about the reincarnation of the soul were found to be incompatible with the official tenets of Christianity. People who dared to support his teachings were threatened with excommunication and social isolation. The final act was the condemnation of Origen and his concept of reincarnation, recorded in an official document containing anathemas against Origen. This document finally banished the belief in reincarnation from Christian doctrine. For many believers, the Bible is the unshakable word of God, but the question arises, can its pages contain hints of truth that have remained hidden for centuries? Let's imagine that the doctrine of reincarnation was once an integral part of the Christian faith, but then was deliberately excluded from official doctrine by church leaders. In sacred texts, one can find some fragments hinting at the possibility of the soul's rebirth, but they have been reinterpreted or simply ignored in order to conform to established dogma. One of the most frequently cited examples by proponents of the idea of reincarnation in the Bible is the passage in Matthew 17:10-13. After Jesus' miraculous transfiguration, the disciples ask a question about the prophecy stating that Elijah is to appear before the Messiah. Jesus responds by saying that Elijah has already come, referring to John the Baptist. This cryptic response from Jesus suggests that John the Baptist was the incarnation of Elijah, sent to prepare the way for the Messiah, just as the ancient prophecies had foretold. For the early Christians, this response was probably understandable since reincarnation was part of their spiritual worldview. Jesus does not hesitate to affirm that the spirit of the prophet Elijah returned in the form of John, as if this were an accepted reality among his followers. John 9:1-25 presents a very entertaining episode where the disciples, seeing a man blind from birth, address Jesus with a question full of hidden meanings. "Teacher, who has sinned, he himself or his parents, that he was born blind?" This question seems to reflect their conviction that a person could have committed sin in some previous existence, in another life prior to the present one. If the idea of reincarnation were completely foreign to Christian and Jewish circles, such a question would be meaningless. The disciples seem to proceed from the understanding that the soul is capable of accumulating deeds beyond the current life, which may serve as an explanation for the state of man at birth. It is noteworthy that Jesus does not refute this assumption, but rather elaborates on it by pointing out that the man's blindness is not a consequence of past transgressions, but an opportunity for the manifestation of God's acts. This dialogue implicitly implies the notion that the soul can carry the baggage of previous experience. Furthermore, in John 3:3-7, Jesus addresses Nicodemus with the words, "Truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." Confused, Nicodemus wonders about the possibility of re-entry into his mother's womb. Jesus, however, speaks of spiritual rebirth, implying a second life. This new birth can be interpreted as a metaphor for spiritual renewal, or, according to some scholars, as a veiled allusion to a cycle of successive incarnations designed to teach and purify. Nicodemus, as a religious authority, recognized that Jesus was speaking of a profound mystery, not just a physical birth. A literal understanding does not capture the depth of Jesus' message, which apparently asserts that the new birth is the key to spiritual growth, a concept quite compatible with the idea of reincarnation over multiple lives. The doctrine of reincarnation, despite its suppression in many Western traditions, is regaining popularity in contemporary spirituality as a way of finding meaning, purpose, and a deeper understanding of our existence. In a dynamic world where the pursuit of instant results often overshadows inner growth, the idea of multiple lives becomes a kind of medicine, offering a path to continuous learning and evolution of the soul. In contemporary spiritual discourse, reincarnation has ceased to be merely a speculative concept of the afterlife, becoming a tool for making sense of human existence. Each incarnation is seen as a unique chance for personal development, spiritual purification, and the acquisition of knowledge that brings one closer to the realization of one's true nature. Unlike traditional Christian teaching, which emphasizes salvation within one earthly life, reincarnation offers a more humane and long-term perspective on the evolution of the soul, alternative to the dogma of eternal torment of hell or bliss of paradise. The resurgence of interest in the idea of reincarnation in the Western world is linked to the penetration of Eastern philosophy, particularly Hinduism and Buddhism, where the concept of rebirth is central. Thinkers such as Alan Watts, spiritual leaders such as the Dalai Lama, and educators such as Swami Vivekananda played a key role in popularizing this belief. They emphasized that the cycle of births and rebirths represented the path to liberation and self-discovery. According to these traditions, one's actions, one's karma, influence not only one's current life, but also one's subsequent incarnations, creating a deep understanding of the responsibility and interconnectedness of all things in the world. Over time, this viewpoint has found a vibrant resonance in the Western world. The concepts of reincarnation and karma, previously perceived as something exotic and distant, have become a solid foundation for deep reflection on the nature of existence and the spiritual essence of man, opening new horizons of understanding life. Interest in reincarnation has penetrated not only philosophical circles, but has also found confirmation in the scientific research of modern psychology. Scientists such as Ian Stevenson, a prominent psychiatrist and professor at the University of Virginia, have devoted long years of their lives to scrutinizing cases of young children, telling remarkably detailed stories about their past lives. The results of these studies are astounding. Children from all over the world described with remarkable accuracy facts about the lives of people they had never met, recalling minute details such as names, places, and events that were later documented. Past life regression techniques, made famous by therapists such as Brian Weiss, claim that immersing oneself in memories of past incarnations can help people heal deep psychological traumas, get rid of phobias, and overcome emotional obstacles whose roots seem impossible to find in the current life. Transpersonal psychology offers a view of reincarnation not just as a speculative philosophical idea, but as a potential reality where the echoes of past lives shape our present. These experiences, imprinted in the depths of the conscious or subconscious mind, influence our mental state, guiding our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Reincarnation is one of those fundamental questions of existence, a mystery that both beckons with its depth and challenges established notions of the world. For some, the belief in a series of rebirths becomes the key to spiritual enlightenment and continuous self-improvement. The soul appears as an eternal wanderer, striving to realize the truth. Others consider this concept to be alien to human nature and too far removed from rational thinking, especially in an age when religious dogma is losing its power over minds. Ultimately, reincarnation is not a dogma that requires blind acceptance or immediate denial. It is a call for everyone to turn to their inner world, to listen to the voice of intuition and find the answers that will illuminate the path of life and bring harmony to the soul. Ultimately, whether our existence is a link in an endless chain of rebirths or a unique moment on this planet, the key is not our destination, but how we live each moment of our lives. The true value is whether our days are filled with meaning, compassion for others, a sense of duty, and boundless love that comes from the heart. The author would like to thank you for your attention.